You finally do it. You cut back on eating out, you pick up extra hours at work, you tell yourself no about 100 times. No to the trip, no to the new phone, no to the concert tickets your friends are all going to, and slowly, painfully, you watch that savings account crawl from $200 to $500 to $1,000, and eventually, somehow, you break past $5,000. You're almost there. You can feel it. And then, one day you log into your account and it actually says $10,000. $10,000. And you just sit there because you expected to feel amazing. You expected some kind of shift. But instead, the first thought that pops into your head is, okay, now what? My name is Ben, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of saving money, specifically why doing everything right still feels like you're doing something wrong. If you're someone who has been grinding to save, finally seeing some real numbers in your account, but feeling weirdly stuck about what to do next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you out. Because today, we're going to talk about what actually happens after you hit that first $10,000. The math, the mindset, and honestly, some stuff that most people in this space just don't talk about. Here's the thing. The first $10,000 is not just hard because money is tight. It's hard because you are fighting against basically every force in your life at the same time. Your habits, your social circle, your own brain, and a financial system that is genuinely not designed for people who are starting from zero. Let's talk about the math first, because the math alone is kind of brutal. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey of consumer finances, the median American household has less than $8,000 in savings, not $8,000 in investments, $8,000 total across everything. And when you zoom in on people under 35, that number drops even further. We're talking about a huge portion of working adults who are living paycheck to paycheck, not because they're irresponsible, but because the gap between income and the basic cost of living has gotten genuinely narrow for a lot of people. So when you're trying to save $10,000 on, say, a $48,000 salary, which is close to the median individual income in the U.S., you're working with maybe $1,500 to $2,000 a month after taxes, rent, food, transportation, and whatever else keeps your life running. If you're saving $300 a month aggressively, it takes you almost 3 years to hit $10,000. 3 years of saying no. 3 years of watching other people seem to spend freely. 3 years of momentum that can be wiped out by one medical bill, one car repair, 1 month where everything goes wrong at once. That's not a savings problem. That's a math problem with a psychological dimension that people don't talk about nearly enough. Now, here's what most people don't realize, and this is the part that I think actually explains why so many people stop right before the finish line. Saving money in the early stages doesn't feel like progress, it feels like punishment. There's a concept in behavioral economics called delayed gratification fatigue. It's not an official clinical term, but the idea is real and well documented. When you're constantly deferring pleasure, skipping the vacation, cooking at home, wearing the same shoes for another year, your brain starts to associate financial responsibility with deprivation. And deprivation is not a sustainable emotional state. At some point, your brain just starts looking for an exit. That's not weakness. That's just how human psychology works. We are not wired for long-term sacrifice without some kind of reward signal along the way. This is actually why a lot of financial advice fails people. Someone tells you to just stop buying coffee or cut subscriptions, and mathematically, okay, sure, that helps a little. But if your entire identity around money is built on restriction, you're going to snap eventually. And when you snap, you don't just spend a little extra, you tend to overspend dramatically because your brain is trying to compensate for months of deprivation all at once. It's the same reason crash diets don't work long term. The restriction itself becomes the problem. So what actually works? Here's the shift that I've seen make the biggest difference for people. Instead of framing saving as I can't spend this money, you start framing it as this money is already gone. It belongs to future me. It sounds simple and a little cheesy, but the psychological impact is real. When you automate your savings so that $300 moves out of your checking account on payday before you ever see it, your brain stops counting that money as available. You stop grieving it. And here's what's interesting. Studies on automated savings behavior consistently show that people who automate report feeling less financial stress, not more, even though they have less money to spend day to day, because certainty is less stressful than temptation. Okay, so let's say you've done it. You've got $10,000 saved. This is where it gets really interesting, because there are two things that happen at this milestone that nobody prepares you for, and they seem to contradict each other. The first thing is, money actually starts working differently at this level. Not dramatically, not overnight, but genuinely differently. Here's a simple example. Let's say you have $10,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account, earning 4.5% interest annually, which is roughly what competitive HYSAs were offering recently. That's $450 a year, or about $37 a month, just sitting there. Now compare that to when you had $1,000 saved. Same interest rate gives you $45 a year, which is basically nothing. The math hasn't changed, but the output has crossed a threshold where you can actually feel it. $37 a month is a utility bill. It's a week of groceries. It's not life-changing, but it's no longer invisible either. And this is the beginning of something called compounding, which everyone talks about, but almost nobody explains in a way that lands emotionally. Compounding is not magic. It's just math that accelerates over time. The reason the first $10,000 is the hardest is not just because you're starting from zero. It's because the math is working against you in the early stages. Every dollar you save has to be manually fought for. But past a certain threshold, each dollar you save starts attracting other dollars. And eventually, the gap between what you're earning from your savings and what you're contributing from your paycheck starts to close. And at some point, not tomorrow, but at some point, your money earns more in a year than you contribute manually. That's the flip, and everything before that flip is just you building momentum toward it. The second thing that happens at $10,000, though, is less exciting, and it's this: the pressure to spend it suddenly becomes enormous. I don't know what it is about round numbers with 4 zeros, but the moment people cross $10,000, they start getting ideas. The car upgrade starts feeling reasonable. The vacation that was always someday suddenly feels earned. Family members who somehow know you've been saving start floating suggestions. You should really buy property. You should invest in my cousin's business. $10,000 is just sitting there doing nothing. And look, some of those ideas might even be good ideas eventually, but the timing is wrong. Because $10,000 is not wealth. $10,000 is a foundation, and foundations don't get built by spending them the moment the concrete sets. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Ben, but what do I actually do with it? And I want to be really clear here. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. What I am going to do is walk you through the logical framework that makes mathematical sense for most people in this situation, and you can take that to a licensed professional or do your own research from there. The general framework that most personal finance principles agree on goes something like this. Your first $10,000 has one job, and that job is not to grow, it's to protect. That money is your emergency fund. The rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses, held somewhere accessible and stable, like a high-yield savings account. If your monthly essentials, rent, food, transport, utilities, minimum debt payments come to about $2,500 a month, then $10,000 covers 4 months. That's your floor. That's what keeps a car repair from becoming a credit card disaster. That's what keeps a job loss from becoming a spiral. An emergency fund doesn't feel productive because it just sits there, but its actual function is insurance. It protects every other financial decision you make from being derailed about bad luck. Once that floor is solid, your next target is whatever employer-matched retirement contribution you might have access to. This part matters more than most people realize. If your employer matches 4% of your salary into a 401k and you're not contributing at least that 4%, you are leaving free money on the table every single paycheck. On a $48,000 salary, 4% is $1,920 a year. If your employer matches that, you're getting $3,840 a year going into retirement, half of which cost you nothing. That is a 100% return on your contribution before the market does anything. There is no investment in the world that reliably beats a 100% match. None. After that, most frameworks point toward either building on your emergency fund toward the 6-month mark or beginning to invest in low-cost index funds through a Roth IRA or similar account, depending on your tax situation and goals.
The exact sequencing depends on your specific circumstances, but the principle is the same. Go in order of highest guaranteed return first, then work your way down. Here's what most people don't realize until they're already past it. Going from 10,000 to 20,000 is easier than going from 0 to 10,000. Not a little easier, noticeably easier. And going from 20,000 to 30,000 is easier than that. This is not motivational fluff. There's a real mechanical reason for it. When you had nothing saved, every unexpected expense was a crisis. A $600 car repair meant your checking account went negative, or you went into credit card debt, which means you'd spend the next 3 months paying interest instead of building savings. Every setback reset you to 0. And psychologically, that changes everything, because now saving feels like it has momentum. You stop feeling like you're running up an escalator that keeps going down. There's also something that happens to your spending psychology when you have money saved that I think is underappreciated. When you're broke, you make expensive decisions, not because you're foolish, but because you have no buffer. You buy the slightly worse car because you needed a car yesterday and didn't have time to shop properly. You pay the high-interest loan because you didn't have cash. You buy food at the convenience store because you forgot to grocery shop and you're exhausted. Poverty is expensive in ways that are invisible until you're out of it. Having even $10,000 saved doesn't eliminate all of that, but it starts giving you options, and options are how you access better prices, better decisions, and better outcomes.
I want to spend a minute on this because I think it's the part most financial content skips over in a rush to get to spreadsheets and calculators. The reason most people don't hit $10,000 is not that they don't know what to do. They know. They've read the articles. They've watched the videos. The reason they don't get there is that the emotional experience of building savings from 0 is genuinely grinding, and nobody validates that enough. Look, it requires sacrifice that your social circle might not understand or share. It requires making decisions that feel bad in the short term for benefits that are abstract and far away. It requires trusting math over feelings repeatedly when your feelings are telling you that you deserve a break. And you do deserve a break. That tension is real. The people who actually build wealth over time are not people who never feel that tension. They're people who have found a way to sit with it without letting it make their decisions for them. The most practical thing I can tell you is this: track your progress visibly, not obsessively, just consistently. A simple spreadsheet where you record your savings balance once a month does something powerful to your brain. It creates a record of momentum. On any given day, saving can feel pointless because the number barely moves. But when you look back at 12 months of data and see that you went from $2,000 to $7,500, that's real. That's documented proof that the system works, and your brain responds to documented proof in a way it just doesn't respond to abstract promises. The other thing worth saying is that your first $10,000 is going to take longer than you want it to. For most people, it takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on income and circumstances, and that's okay. 2 to 5 years is not a long time in the context of a financial life that spans decades. The people who are financially secure in their 40s and 50s mostly aren't there because they hit some jackpot. They're there because they started earlier than most, kept going when it was slow, and let time do the heavy lifting. You're not behind. You're just in the part of the story that hasn't gotten interesting yet. So here's where we land. The first $10,000 is hard because the math is against you, the psychology is against you, and the social environment is often against you. But it's also a real and meaningful threshold, not because it makes you rich, but because it changes how money works in your life. It gives you a buffer that stops bad luck from erasing your progress. It gives you the beginning of compounding momentum, and it gives you proof, actual documented evidence that you can do this. What comes after $10,000 is not easier in the sense that it requires less effort. It's easier in the sense that the effort starts producing more visible results. The snowball gets heavier and it moves faster, and the habits you built to get to $10,000, automating, tracking, holding the line on unnecessary spending, those same habits are exactly what builds the next $10,000 and the one after that. Start where you are. Automate what you can. Track your progress, and give yourself enough grace to keep going when it feels slow, because it will feel slow. But slow is not stopped, and that difference is everything. If this video helped you think about any of this differently, hit that thumbs up. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear it. Drop in the comments where you are in your savings journey, because I read those and they help me figure out what to cover next. And I'll see you in the next one.